Hello everybody and welcome back. Today, I, wielder of the Triforce of Countdowns, thought that I would do a little breakdown analysis of the new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. I already posted some of my thoughts on it, but it wasn't exactly an analysis. Analyzing further has revealed some really interesting details or secrets that I would like to get into in this video. So with all that out of the way, let's just get going. So of course, the trailer begins with a shot of tendrils of malice coming in from the corner. There's no rat this time, that is the victim, so that's quite the relief. And then we get this little shot of Link with what looks to be some of that malice creeping or writhing on his arm. So that's very interesting, because as we see, that same arm has a lot of other stuff going on with it later. Something very peculiar about this part of the trailer is that you can almost see a green glow behind Link at this point. And that's the kind of same green color scheme that we'll see in a lot of things throughout this trailer. The malice continues, and then we get a shot of Ganondorf, or presumably Ganondorf, who is most definitely alive, if that wasn't already clear enough from the original trailer. He is making noise and lifting his arms up, so that is, yes, he is definitely alive. We see more of the malice, and then, to conclude this part of the trailer, we see Zelda falling down a hole. You all thought that maybe she'd be playable, but no, she just dies. Okay. But in all seriousness, this is definitely worth exploring because we basically don't see Link and Zelda together throughout the whole rest of this trailer. So there might be some really interesting implications here. It could be that this is a point where they're separated, and that this could imply that you do play as her. It's just a completely separate quest. That wasn't the direction I thought they might go with it, but it seems possible. Again, they might also just reunite later. And I might be reading into it too much, but that is just something worth noting. And then we open up with Link in the sky, of course, the shot that completely bamboozled everybody. There are a lot of things to note here. It just doesn't really seem like Hyrule to me. A lot of people might think that those sky islands, like Hyrule Castle, got raised up, but it doesn't really seem like these islands come from Hyrule. That's just my impression. They seem to all have the kind of same aesthetic, and the only place in Hyrule that I could think of that looks like this is Akkala or Akkala. So it just really seems like a completely alternate realm or something like that. It almost reminds me of like the Silent Realm from Skyward Sword, because Link has no shield, bow, sword. He has his completely new outfit, but no weapons or items seemingly, except there is a pouch down there. And of course, we see Link's arm, not with its activated green color because it is not in use, but we will see more of that activated color later. Other than that, the only other things of note in this shot are that all we really see here is a lake, seemingly, on the island, and a path kind of surrounded by an orange color. And I'm really hoping that there's more to this area. They might just be literally editing things out of this so we aren't spoiled, but I just hope there's, plenty of puzzles, settlements, structures, mini dungeons, maybe even a full dungeon somewhere. Maybe this is where all the dungeons take place. That would be very interesting. As long as there's a sufficient amount of atmospheric variety, they could still do that here. There could still be a water dungeon, a fire dungeon, even if it was all up in the sky. But yeah, I just hope there's more things like that. Settlements, things like that. And then we move on to the next shot in the sky, where now he does have his shield, bow, arrows, all of that stuff. So that's a very interesting thing to note, and like a lot of things I'll be pointing out here, that's just what it is, something I'm pointing out, something to chew on, because I'm not quite sure what the implications might be. I have a few theories, but it's unclear how exactly it all fits in. We also see here a large building off to the right, perhaps a dungeon, but maybe not. And again, mostly just more of the same trees, although there are some arches around. Moving on to the next sky shot, there is, again, more of the archways. Doesn't seem to be too much substance from what we can see to these arches and things, but we very well may be mistaken. We see on the left here some strange engravings on some of these stones, and potentially on the center island here, there seems like there may be a structure. It may just be a tree with different shading based on where it is, but it also seems like it could be a structure. That brings us to this shot with the mechanical dragon or lizard, whatever you would like to call it yourself. It's unclear whether this is a good guy or a bad guy. I originally saw it and thought that's a boss. It looks like something that could be a more classic Zelda boss. But it's honestly quite unclear. We see green energy in its neck, which is similar to the other green energies we'll see that Link is using throughout the trailer. I would also like to note that the symbol kind of around his eye area is similar looking to what's on Link's shield. Not identical, but similar, but almost an inverted version of it. There's a symbol on his chest. It's quite unclear what it is. I thought it was a clock at first, but that does not seem to be the case. In the next shot here, we see a Bokoblin camp on top of taluses, and the interesting thing is that the Bokoblins this time around seem to have horns, similar to Moblin horns. And this time Moblins, as we'll see later, don't have those horns. They have something else that looks more like an octopus or something. So this is an area of, slight concern to me, just because there can't be too much, what I guess I'll just call it smooshing, smushing things together. There needs to be, I guess the main concern here is enemy variety. Like, we need new stuff, not just combining the old. And I'm sure they have that, they're just not showing too much, but this here, it seems like something that will spice it up a little bit, but not a ton, There just can't be too much of this smushing together. There has to be brand new things as well. In the next shot, we see the arm on Link glowing fully. It looks almost like it's being installed at this moment. It seems like it's starting from the top, the color is fading. We don't see it fade all the way, but again, it's a similar color scheme to the hand that was on Ganondorf's body, perhaps sealing it, and also to the swirls at the very beginning, and I believe the very end of the original trailer for this sequel. Something else interesting of note is that Link is shirtless and seemingly lying down. It could mean nothing, but it almost seems like he's willingly letting this happen to him. It's almost like he's laying down on some sort of platform. You see strange characters on it. It could also be that, he was in a tough fight and his clothing got ripped and it's being placed on him against his will, and he is asleep at this point, or something like that. But some of these things seem to indicate that it is something willingly undergone, or at least undergone without too much resistance. Then we get another really interesting shot where we see a spiked ball going back up the path that it came down, and things turn black and white, which is very interesting. And this is where we see the Moblins with the strange blobs on top of their heads. Looking back at it now, it doesn't look so much like an octopus really, but it does look like almost like a rock with warts on it. We see enemy camps in the background off to the left and sort of center there. And again, really hoping they're spicing it up a lot, not just a little bit, because enemy camps, we got plenty of that in Breath of the Wild. And it's okay if some of that comes back, but there needs to be plenty of new stuff to do as well. A very interesting thing of note here is that the Sheikah Slate seems to have been ditched. in favor of Link's new arm. And when Link is activating this new ability, it almost looks like a Triforce symbol on his hand. So clearly his new arm is the source of a lot of his abilities, rather than the Sheikah Slate this time around, although they might replicate some of the Sheikah abilities once again this time. And again, in Hyrule, we notice that he's in his normal outfits. Either all of this takes place before all the things in the sky, or there's frequent switch betweens. Now, those aren't the only options, but it's just, and I highly doubt that it's the first option, but it's just very interesting to note that he's usually wearing his typical champion's tunic here, but something completely different whenever he is in the sky. Next, we see a strange creature in a cavern that Link is fighting. It's very interesting to note that the flamethrower that Link is using seems to be attached to his shield, and before it is activated, it glows green very slightly. Again, that same green color. I'm hoping this isn't just a melee weapon where you can just choose anything you want to kill this enemy. I hope it requires something of a more unique strategy, or at least slightly restricted options for taking it down. In my Breath of the Wild 2 wishlist videos, as you may have seen, I mentioned that things like the boomerang, the fire rod, they used to be unique items, but they just got turned into regular melee weapons in Breath of the Wild, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. So I'm hoping this is like a unique thing that you attach to your shield at certain points, a unique item. We see this shot of Link ascending into a sky island, his arm glowing as he does so, and of course the orange energy is all around him, not simply in his arm. And we see more of the archways. This seems like it's either a much bigger island, because it has other islands hovering above it. So it's either that, or we see the kind of mushrooms from the Tabantha area down there. It could also be that these islands are just above Hyrule, but just not very high up, relatively speaking. We see some more engravings in the structure directly to Link's right, and very interestingly, perhaps one of my most interesting discoveries in this video, and I really wonder whether anybody else has noticed this. The sort of lamp-looking things that are directly in front of the structure on the island that Link is on look identical to what we saw on the mechanical dragon. The white kind of bulbs on either side of its head. So that's very, very interesting. It may imply that there is some consistent theme or origin of the mechanical dragon and some of these structures. And lastly, we see an insane amount of malice rising up as the castle rises. Something I noticed is that rather than just the castle's rising up, tendrils are coming out. In one of those shots, it almost looks like some of those tendrils are what is pushing the castle up and kind of splashing against it. So that's all I have for you in this video today, everybody. I hope you found some new little secrets or tidbits that you didn't notice before. Let me know in the comments down below if you noticed anything that I didn't mention. I'm continuing to try to expand the channel, especially this summer, so I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and left a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Have a fantastical day.